Africa needs about 15 million new decent jobs every year to harness its demographic dividend, reflected by a booming young population. But the potential benefits of Africa's youthful population are unrealized. More than two-thirds of non-student youth are unemployed, discouraged, or only vulnerably employed. Africans rank the need for quality jobs above other issues. Over 70% say their governments are handling job creation poorly, far above the percentage of citizens that think their governments are handling such other issues, such as healthcare and education. Joining us now from our Abuja studios to discuss further is Mr. Edwin Ikhuoria, who is One Africa's Executive Director. Previously, he was a Senior Advisor, Policy and Advocacy to the Africa Executive Director. And before joining One in 2014, he worked for the Development Impact Evaluation Unit of the World Bank as an Impact Evaluation and Advocacy Coordinator in the Nigeria Country Office. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So how do we get more young people working across the African continent?
I think that the main answer stands with how do we destroy the current structural barriers that are preventing jobs from being created. And across the African continent, it's about how do you attract more investment to the continent, especially given the very terrible narrative of how risky it is to do business in Africa, and thereby, closing the doors for new capital inflows into the continent. So the more we can talk about the good things that are happening and those who are succeeding already, and that can encourage more private sector investment into the continent, then we're most likely to create more opportunities, for Africa's young people. But indeed, this is like the kind of existential question right now on the African continent. Nigeria is an example of what unemployment can do in terms of creating insecurity and instability across the continent.
All right. So is the One Africa campaign going to advise governments through policy publications? How exactly is this going to work?
So it's a campaign. It's not just the one campaign. It's a coalition of about 40 African civil society organizations in 7 different African countries that are coming together. We're basically working to bring the issue of job creation back on the top of the agenda. Africa is currently, most governments are distracted with all kinds of things right now. Different shocks, the pandemic, insecurity, and all kinds of things are distracting, the fiscal allocations to sectors that can really create jobs. Say in agriculture, for instance, the level of investment that are needed to really make increased productivity in the sector is distracted because the government have to spend money on other things and the shocks of the pandemic and the rest. So now we are in the space of recovery. This campaign is aimed at bringing attention to the key issues that if you do not put attention to them, you will continue to lose opportunities. And so our campaign is basically to call attention to say job creation should be the center of any government aspiration right now across the African continent. So policy constraints that are doing this, we want to highlight them. And then in each market or in each country, the coalition partners are going to be raising those specific issues that what we call it the low-hanging fruits. So that when the government take action in those areas, then you are likely to get strategic results in private sector investment and new jobs that will be created.
Great stuff. I'm glad you mentioned results. So you worked in the Development Impact Evaluation Unit of the World Bank. How do we measure the impact of this campaign, what it plans to achieve for job growth for African youth?
First of all, it's about how do we get the African government to prioritize those key sectors? And I come back to agriculture because it is the one that it is a sector that can really, employ the majority of the young people right now. Manufacturing, how do we move? And this, in terms of measurement, we're trying to see the level of value creation that begins to happen on the African continent. For many years, like Africa is a supplier of raw materials. We import all the finished goods, thereby just exporting all of our jobs. So the question right now, the key constraint, the key results that we're looking for is the level of value creation or value addition that happens on the continent. And we are looking at how the continental free trade area takes off. So first, one of the key results we'll also be checking is the extent to which African countries begin to operationalize and participate in the African continental free trade area by harmonizing their policies so that the customs in Nigeria and the customs in Togo and the customs elsewhere speak to each other. They can accept each other's goods. Those are some key results we put ahead of the things we want to see that will change and in the result of this campaign directly.
Excellent stuff. The conversations around jobs, there always seems to be going in the direction of government. And I'm wondering if the One campaign is actually going to involve youth. So, for example, on agriculture, just anecdotally, if you speak to, I don't know how many youth on a daily basis, do they want to work in agriculture, or do they want to work in tech, or do they want to work? Do you think there are enough youth that are enthused about working in agriculture on the African continent, whatever country you pick, whether it's Kenya or Uganda, I tried to say Kenya and Uganda at the same time, or Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, wherever else, are they enthused about agriculture in your view?
Let me answer this by saying that young people want to work where there is money. And I think that is the biggest challenge. The level of productivity in the agricultural sector is so poor that it discourages young people from getting in. But if you put investment and you create an ecosystem that enables them to be really productive and make money, young people want to do business. And so it's not, the tech is one, but even tech gurus will eat, isn't it? If everybody goes into tech and engineering, so who will produce the food? And as long as there is an opportunity in a particular sector, young people want to get into it. The question is, how productive is it? When I see my parents, struggle on the farm, barely making a living, I don't want to continue there. But I can tell you something. One of the biggest investment that the Chinese they invested in was in transforming the agricultural sector. They put infrastructure in the right places so that when you produce your goods, you don't need to go far to sell them. You can sell your goods right on an app. And that's the kind of transformation that needs to happen on the African continent. And young people will get into a business that produce money. So it's not necessarily about whether they want to leave agriculture, but it's so unproductive. That's why they want to, the drudgery is so much. That's why they're all moving away from that. But if it produces money, and if it's modernized, they can sell their products on the tap, on an app. They can be in a remote village and be able to sell their goods in China. Everybody wants to get into that. There's a killing to be made. And that's what we're trying to say. Put the investment and make sure that the business potential of this sector is really open to young people, and then you will see people who will get into it.
So what kind of challenges do you envision to trying to get this, trying to get these results that we're seeking? When you look at the African continent and you see Nigeria's at 33.3% unemployment, that number has not been updated since 2020, I think fourth quarter or so. So it could have grown up until now. Namibia is in double digits. South Africa just released unemployment figures 2 or 3 days ago. That's at another all-time high. So, I mean, as you know, it's the situation is what it is. What kind of hurdles do you envision as far as getting the campaign to achieve its goals?
Okay, so first of all, it's a marathon. It's not one-off. It's not like one campaign that you just do in 1 year and it's done. That's the different thing. So this is the challenges. The challenges are in the ecosystem. And as such, we envisage those structural challenges that will take some time to resolve. But we need to start taking the steps. We need to start determining, first of all, each country needs to prioritize what are the biggest hurdles. So the hurdles right now in different countries are different. So for instance, in Nigeria, there's a high level of informality. More than 80 to 90% of the people that are in the job market are in the informal sector. Is there a way to bring them into a structure that you can actually, they know that their jobs are no longer precarious? How do we give them access to things like, social safety nets or things like health insurance that enables them to know that even when they are working in the informal sector, there's a minimum guarantee, there's a decent living to be earned. Those are some structural issues, for instance, in Nigeria. But in some other places, it's not just about informality, it's actually about the availability of capital, access to capital. So each market or each country has different issues that they can deal with. And that's why as we envisage the campaign at the Pan-African level, we also envisage the campaign at different markets. In Nigeria, the issue right now, I think the coalition is pursuing is how do you put a system in place so that startups don't fail after the first 2 years? What are the ecosystem changes that need to happen? The enabling business environment, how operational is it? Those are the kind of things that are happening for Nigeria. But in Senegal, for instance, it's about access to capital. Then we are asking development finance institutions like the African Development Bank, the European Investment Bank, the different DFIs that are supposed to be bridging the gap, the IFC, for instance, bridging the gap for development capital. They should begin to do so and put it at the scale that will allow each of these sectors that are really most progressive to really begin to take off. So that's the way we are tackling them. It's market by market, different challenges in different markets, and that's how we are approaching this campaign.
Excellent stuff. Mr. Edwin Ikhuoria, who is the Executive Director of One Africa. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for talking to us about improving employment for youth on the African continent.